Okay, so welcome. I'm Thomas, also known as Echira on Discord, if you want to see me in Discord. Also known as the Explorer backend guy, if you have, if you have some question. So yeah, today I will talk to you about Ralph LSP. So it's a tool that I hope you will all use, and it will be helpful for you to write some nice contracts in Ralph. So maybe just a small vote. Who not a vote, a poll. Who have no idea what LSP is? Okay. So,
okay, we're gonna have fun.
Okay. So at least the presentation is not for nothing. So LSP. So LSP, it's an initiative created by Microsoft, and it stands for Language Server Protocol. So it's a communication protocol between a client, which is usually a text editor, and a language server. And the language server, it's a program, and we can see it like a coding assistant, and you can ask him some question about your code, and he can reply you, for example, with all the errors of the code, all the warnings, and he can also provide you all the auto completion, the code navigation, formatting, renaming, everything that we usually see in any IDE or stuff like this. So I won't go into details, but that's the kind of request that is done. So the protocol is oops. Let me remove. Up. So the protocol is using JSON RPC. So basically, the client will send this request to the server. So this text document completion request. And in the parameter, it will typically be the current line number, the current file, and the location in the line. And then the server, since you know the code, you can then return a list of completion that match where you are in the code. And unfortunately, we can see that Clippy didn't really understood the question. So, and one thing that is nice with LSP, it starts to be kind of widely used. Almost now, all popular editors start to have implementation of the protocol, and most of the languages also start to have a server. So it starts to be quite useful. And maybe some of you are wondering why we are like working on this Ralph LSP, while we already have the VSCode extension that works great. Well, it's exactly because it's only for VSCode, and the goal of a language server is to have one server, one program that can serve like every editors. So for us, it's really convenient because we can write only one piece of code, and then every editors can have all the nice feature. Otherwise, we will have to write one plugin for every editor, and it will take way too much time. And also, it's useful for users because then you can use the editor you like. You don't need to stick to one editor to have access to some nice features. So maybe just another poll: who's not using VS Code? Oh, that's nice. So you'll be happy. So so enough of talking. We'll jump to a small demo. So I wrote. Is it? No, I need to zoom. Let's see. I wrote a some small contract. It's small but useful contracts. So is it big enough? Yeah. So yeah, we have a contract, a Latin contract that defines some beers. And if you are thirsty, you are a drinker, you can call the drink function. The stock of beer reduced by 1, and then you you get back some cheers. So maybe if you are already using the VS Code extension, or you are already programming a bit of a Ralph contract, you know that if you want to compile, you will usually use the SDK that will then call call a node to compile. And now, since Ralph LSP is written in the same language as our full node, we have direct access to the compiler, so you don't even need a full node to be able to compile your code. So yeah. So now, so when I start my editor and I open my Ralph file, so the server is directly started. So for example, if I start to make some mistake, for example, if I miss a capital letter, I will directly get the error now integrated into the editor. Or if I don't know, I remove a bracket, or any kind of error, like, oh, there is also warnings if you are missing some annotations, or any kind of compiler error. For example, the drink function is returning a byte vec. So if suddenly we return a unit, then it will tell you that the return type is wrong. Then the typical function the feature you will see, which is also you see it in our VS Code extension, is jump to definition. For example, here, if I want to see what's the value of the Wilhelm scream, I can just trigger my jump to definition shortcut and jump to it. Who knows the Wilhelm scream? Only what? Only one? Okay, but come. Okay, you should all go to YouTube later and you say Wilhelm scream compilation. You won't be disappointed. I know you knew, but I would expect at least one other. So let's back here. So yeah, jump to definition. It's quite common, but what we added here is we can also jump to the definition of the built-in function. For example, let me close this. If I want to jump to the caller address, it will show you the argument, the return type, as well as some explanation of the functions. Same for any built-in function. So here I imported one of our interface, but it's not used. But I also wanted to show that since we had the code available, we also added the jump to definition on the interfaces. If you want to see the code of the interfaces, you can even jump on the directory, and it will list you all the interfaces. Maybe, and yes.
So you also get autocomplete when you try to import something?
Yes. And the last feature I want to show you is also quite common, but it's called completion. So I wrote another contract bar that provide beer. So if I want to use it, let's let it add to my contract. If I want to replace that hard-coded value, I can just start to type, and you see it will propose me what I want. And then if I continue, it will only provide me the right function I need. So that's it for the small demo, but maybe you are thinking, okay, it's easy. It's like two small contracts. So let's maybe just jump to a real world example. So the code of our bridge. Is it big enough? No. So here we have a lot more contracts. So we can see already there is a lot of warning, by the way, in the. But same, we can jump to definition. For example, this constant thing. Yes, we can also see where some variables are used. For example, this error code. If I ask where it's used, it will list me. Oh, it's a bit too. Yeah, it's a bit too big. But there is three places where it's used. And yeah, same for the errors. It's quite fast. For example, if I remove this function in the governance contract, I will directly get the error that it doesn't exist. And if I jump to the function, I can jump to the error and see that it's not used. No, it's not. It doesn't exist. So yeah, I think that's it for the demo. So what's next? So first, we'll continue to improve what we have, because I think some completion are not perfect now. And of course, we will add more and more feature, like rename, format, hover, code completion, if no, code lenses. And of course, any feature you want. If you are a big user of any kind of LSP server, and you have a feature that you love to use, just tell us, and we'll see if we can add it to our Ralph LSP. Maybe also do some integration with tree-sitter. I don't know if someone knows tree-sitter, but yeah, we'll see. I did the Ralph integration for tree-sitter, but I need to see how to integrate it. But I won't enter the details now. You had a question?
I thought tree-sitter was a very lean thing.
Sorry?
I thought that tree-sitter was a very lean thing.
Not only, actually, and it's used a lot in Vim, but it's also used. There is a plugin in Emacs, in other stuff, and it starts to be used elsewhere. And there are some few small issues we want to tackle. For example, we know that the parsing is really strict, and sometimes you get some parser error while we could delegate this error to the compiler. So, for example, when you have a parsing error, sometimes the completion then doesn't work as good as when you can at least parse everything. And also the way to configure Ralph LSP, currently there is one manual step to do, and we want to remove it. So it's really like a one-click install. So for all the devs, it's easy to install the server and to use it. And last but not least, please try it. So we already have a published VSCode extension, which is called Ralph LSP. Ralph LSP Alephium. You can search it on the VSCode marketplace. For other editor, please go to our GitHub page, Alephium/Ralph LSP. Try to install it. Try to break it. Open issues. If you are currently, we tested it mostly on VSCode and NeoVim. But if you are using something else, like open pull request to explain how to install it on the README. Yeah, the goal is really to have a tool to help all the devs. So please help us also help you. So yeah, thank you.